watching the Mystical Green Beanie.
Hey, what's going on, dudes and dudettes? I am the Mystical Green Beanie, and today we're talking about Man of Steel issue number 1, written by Brian Michael Bendis and drawn by Ivan, or Ivan, I can't really get his name right, I'm sorry, but Mr. Reese, drawn by Mr. Reese. So, I've been more than critical of Bendis in most of my videos now, but if you look at the man's writing history over the past 4 to 5 years, I think you'll find my distrust for anything with his name on it to be somewhat justified. So, before I get into the first issue of Man of Steel, I want to go back a few weeks and talk about his debut in Action Comics 1000, which was, overall, meh. It was alright. There were stories that I enjoyed. I loved the Tom King story. I loved the Dan Jurgens story. But my personal favorites are a tie between the Meltzer story and the Tomasi story. Those were the two that really stood out to me in a positive way. But then there was a third story that stood out to me. Not in a good way. And it was the Bendis one. Because literally every Bendis-ism that you can make fun of is in his Action Comics 1000 short story. Characters talking about literally the least important thing in the world for pages upon pages? Check. An obvious joke that gets run into the ground? Check. A really well-written action sequence that's wonderfully drawn, but squandered because the context is underwhelming? Check. Yeah, Action Comics 1000 was not a good debut for Bendis. Like, at all. So I think it's safe to say that going into Man of Steel number 1, I had my fair share of worries. But as far as Bendis' first issues go, I was not expecting this at all. And I mean that in the best way possible. Now, it's not as good as the first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man or the first issue of New Avengers, but I thought it was on the same level as the first issue of the Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man series or the first issue of Ultimate Fantastic Four. It's clearly a setup issue, but there were enough pieces on the table to make me interested enough to finish the puzzle. He sets up an interesting mystery surrounding Clark's family. Something happened to John and Lois apparently, so I want to see where that goes. Also, there's been a series of arson attacks, and we're introduced to a new fire chief named Melody Moore. And I have a theory that she might end up being Bendis' version of Maggie Sawyer. Well, either that or she's a villain. And I know that some people are speculating that she might be a love interest for Superman, but I don't think that's where Bendis is going to take that character. And if it is, I think it'll be a situation of unrequited love. Regardless, I'm still fascinated to see where this all goes. And I really like Bendis' voice for Superman. For a while, I was afraid that it was just going to come off as a reskinned Captain America, but it doesn't. It feels genuinely like Superman. I also like how Bendis touches on certain things about Superman that we joke about, but he actually does. For example, Clark is hovering over Metropolis, listening out for people who are in danger, and he hears this young girl singing, and it distracts him for a moment because she's a really good singer. And then he stops himself from listening any further because he starts to feel like he's eavesdropping, and, you know, that's weird and creepy. And Clark even starts to feel embarrassed that he even did that. And it was such a naturalistic moment. And it made me realize that Bendis gets it. Because throughout the book, Superman is depicted as this larger-than-life icon. But once you get inside his head, he's just a normal guy. And if, hypothetically, Murphy's Law goes into full effect and the Bendis run on Superman is a complete train wreck, at the very least, he not only understood Clark Kent and Superman as characters, but he was capable of communicating that rather effectively without using Ma and Pa Kent as a narrative crutch. But if there was one thing that I just wasn't a fan of in regards to this issue, it's all of the Rogol-Zar stuff. And it's not that I think it's inherently bad. I actually kind of dig the idea that Krypton's destruction wasn't an accident, and that Krypton was eradicated in an ethnic cleansing. The only problem is, A, we've seen that story before, not even that long ago, mind you, and B, it just wasn't the stuff that I was interested in when reading this comic. As for Ivan, or, you know, I'm just going to call him Ivan. As for Ivan Reis's art, the dude's amazing. He draws Superman with such a sense of majesty. He almost comes off as this larger-than-life divine being, which perfectly juxtaposes Superman's interaction with the city of Metropolis, as well as his internal monologue. Also, every page and every panel in this issue is poster worthy. My top 3 pages in this issue were the page where Superman is flying with Firefly and Killer Moth, which is a really funny interaction, by the way. I also love the page where Clark is hovering over the city, just listening. That was beautiful. And the last one is where Superman is investigating the apartment building after he puts out the fire, and there's this beautiful image of Superman in silhouette, but the symbol on his chest is vibrant, it's popping with red and gold, and his eyes are glowing blue because he's using his X-ray vision, and the rest of his face is black because he's in shadow. That was just beautiful and amazing, and I really want to pick up some prints of that to like hang on my wall or something. So yeah, in the end, there was a lot of great stuff in this issue. It was really fun. It felt like a Superman comic, and that's all I really could have asked for. That said, Bendis typically writes good first issues. In fact, the worst first issue I've ever read from Bendis is from his run on Daredevil, which is probably one of the greatest runs in comics, so take that for what it's worth. But I'm interested in seeing where this all goes. And again, there were 5 more issues in this run. There's still plenty of room for disappointment, so I don't want to get my hopes up just yet, because I have been burned by this man way too many times, but I'm excited to see where Bendis goes from here. And I do wish that this was more along the lines of what we got in Action Comics 1000, because this is way better than what he did over there. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. But what about you? What did you think of the first issue? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know down below in the comment section. Also, if you like this video, hit the like button, share, support the channel. And if you want to see more content like this, all you have to do is subscribe. I'm the Mystical Green Beanie. Thanks for watching. And as always, until next time, adios, nachos.